bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-ba-dum rum bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 da-da-da-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-ba-dum. Hi friends. It's Monday night. Hi. I see everyone joining in. It's so wonderful to see you. Hello. My name is Joette Calabrese, for those of you who don't know me. And this is what we do every Monday night at 8 o'clock. We do one thing and one thing only. And that's what we do is we talk about homeopathy. I teach you what I know, and I hope that you meet each other and help each other here and there. And for those who do know me, hi friends. I see you all joining in. It's great to see you. Diane from Wisconsin, and Sandra from Texas, and Angela from, Central Maryland. And greetings, mighty, says Deborah in Wichita. Hi, Allie from Ontario, and Irene from Montreal. A lot of Canadians. It's nice to see my Canadian friends. And Elizabeth, hello, everyone. So good to see you all. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for having confidence in me. Thank you for moving this movement along. And how important this is difficult to determine. But I think if you're here, it's probably because you've been using homeopathy, or you're new and you want to learn some homeopathy, how to use this so that you can move along and take care of your family without dependency on synthetic drugs. Or if you already have synthetic drugs in your life, because I don't urge people to hop off their drugs if they're on something such as a blood pressure med or something like that. Would not be prudent to do anything like that. But it doesn't mean that you can't use homeopathy right alongside of it. They are compatible. A lot of doctors who know nothing about homeopathy are worried that it might not be compatible, but not a lot. Now, every once in a while I hear about it. But they are quite compatible. So hello, my mighties. Hi, Libby. Hi, Caitlin. Hi, Pam. Hi, Donna. All right. Tonight we're going to talk about fever. But before we do so, I want to mention something that's new on our platform, and I want to share it with you. I'm really excited to tell you about this special feature that we've kind of soft launched. And what I mean is that we're kind of beta testing it. And it's on the Mighty Members site. For those of you who are Mighty Members, you're going to really get I think you'll have some great advantage. And some of you have already found it. We noticed today that some have already noticed it and are using this new feature. It's for Mighty Members only. And I've created a tailored, I haven't done it. My AI team has done it. I've asked them, and they pulled it off. An AI function that's a search tool for Mighty Members. And it's trained on Mighty Members lives and Monday night lives. It's secured, it's encrypted, and you have 100% control over its access to information. So it's not anything that's going to get information from you and then put it out anywhere. Let me see if I can get more information for you here. Any conversation you have with this AI is monitored for training purposes for us only. It's not used anywhere else. And we have a very secure team. And what I mean by secure team, it's actually Giuseppe and Joe. They're right there. They work with us full time every day. And you remain completely anonymous unless you give your personal information, like your name, etc. So don't do that. Okay. It won't take a case, this function. But it offers answers that I've already given. So it acts like me, like I'm answering a question, but the question is based on answers that I've already given in other forums. So again, it's for Mighty Members, and it interprets human speech and turns it into a more human aspect. It's like Giuseppe was telling me, it's instead of going to, say, the Dewey Decimal System, when we used to do that in the library, it's getting that information, but actually going to the librarian who knows even further how to really dig about and find information. So it's not going to give you anything new. It's going to give you only what I have already given you. It's kind of interesting. So I thought you might be interested. So the way you get to it, of course, is going to your Mighty Members site or Mighty Members Plus, and you'll find a way to get into it. And as I said, some people have already found it. It was only went up, I think, yesterday. And we're going to see how it works out. So it's an intelligence, it's a search engine. That's really the best way to look at that. So I wanted to give you that information tonight because it might be of use to you. I think it will be. And I mean, let's use AI in its best possible way, and hope that that no one has any trouble with it. I doubt you will. It's very secure, and just give it a try. For those of you who are not Mighty Members and you might want to become one, you can go to joettesmightymembers.com, or you can just go to Joette's Learning Center and scroll down until you find Mighty Members. So let's talk tonight about fever. Now, here's the thing. Are you having a difficult time hearing me? Okay, I hope you're not having it. I'm very close to the microphone, but let's just hope this all works out. Let me know if you can't hear me very well, or if you can. Alrighty, so fever. Now, when I talk about fever, in articles that I've published okay, sounds good. All right, great. When I write about it, when I speak about it, generally no problems here. Okay, everyone's got good sound. Good. Generally, I'm speaking about fever in those who get fevers most readily. And who would that be? Children. So children get fevers. Adults don't get fevers as frequently. And in a fever in adult, it is kind of a slightly different entity. But let's start with children, shall we? And so because I believe down to my toes that a child who gets a fever for a sore throat or strep throat, ear infection, a cold, whatever it might be, they're in good stead. They're supposed to get a fever. A fever cooks off what needs to be cooked off. And I've talked about this many times, but the reason I'm bringing it up now is because there's such a discussion about acetaminophen and what are we going to do about fever? Well, in my estimation, when it comes to a child's fever, we leave it alone. Let it be. Keep the child hydrated. The most important thing is that the child remains hydrated. And this is difficult for many mothers because it's been for too long they'd been told to indeed go and give your child Tylenol. Before that, it was aspirin. But even the American Academy of Pediatrics has agreed, and I've said this a number of times, but again, certain things are worth repeating. The American Academy of Pediatrics for years said, yes, acetaminophen, Tylenol, even before that, aspirin. But now what they say is fever might have a role in the improvement of the condition. It might have a role in keeping the child from getting sicker. So this is what most moms think, and grandmoms who have not done their homework like you folks have. They think, well, it's uncomfortable, and I don't want my child to be uncomfortable. Well, the world, life, is made up of uncomfortable situation after uncomfortable situation after uncomfortable situation. And no, we don't want to be horribly uncomfortable, but in the long run, it is always best to allow a fever to blossom completely on its own and keeping the child, as I said, hydrated. Because in the long run, a suppressed fever, and suppression is actually a bad word in homeopathy, and a suppressed fever can drive the fever and drive the condition to a deeper, more sobering state. And that's why, for those of you who have been studying holistic health for a long time, you know the value of a sauna. What does a sauna do? it induces a fever of sorts, an artificial fever. And we know that saunas are used successfully and regularly for conditions such as more chronic conditions such as cancer or many other conditions. So if we assume that a sauna is an important thing, that we sweat and we get hot and uncomfortable, a sauna is not comfortable. I don't know about you, but I don't find them comfortable. They're worth it because we know we're doing some good. A fever is exactly that. Now, I have to tell you that if I look up fever in my repertory, I'm looking at the 4th edition of the Meta Repertory by Robin Murphy. I'm looking under fevers, which is page 2226. And there are about 290, maybe 300 remedies that are specific for just fever in general. That's a lot of remedies from which to choose. I'm going to show you the rubric. You can see it here. Look at all these medicines here. Look at all of these. Those are all homeopathic medicines specific for just fever. Now, there are different kinds of fevers. There are malarial fevers. There's fevers that alternate with chills. There's fever that alternate with vomiting and nausea. Fevers in children, fever in adults, fever in the spring, fever in the winter, fevers after anxiety, during anxiety, anxiety during fevers. It goes on and on and on, and there are many pages of remedies that are specific to fevers. Now, what we find, though, in that large rubric I just pointed out to you, is that there are a couple of medicines, homeopathic medicines, that are top-notch. What I mean by that is not that they're better than others, but they are more often used because they are so clinically noted time and again that these medicines are the most commonly found to be useful. And if you happen to have the book 2226, page 2226, you'll notice that aconitum is one of the top medicines for fever. And in that case, we talk about aconitum as especially a quick onset. 1 minute the child is fine, the next minute, bam, they've got a sore throat, or bam, it's an ear infection, or no particular area of the body, just a fever. If it comes on really quickly, we often think of aconitum, and especially if there's anxiety associated with it, or a quick event, or an onset of the event is so shortened from the time the person was well to the time the person is not well. We think of aconitum. But let me also tell you, the most common medicine that most people know to use is belladonna. So, particularly belladonna is useful for a higher fever. Now, what is a high fever? Excuse me. A high fever is not 99. It's not 100. I don't even consider 101 a high fever, to be honest. I think that for a child, a high fever is closer to 103, something like that. Excuse me. So I always think of, now this is for common childhood illnesses. We're not talking about a serious infection such as, I don't know, a car accident. And now the child has has a fever because there are lacerations and they are infecting, or blood infection, sepsis, septicemia. That's a different situation. We're talking about regular, normal childhood diseases. Very high fever, yes, is 105, 104. And I've seen it. So let me just finish and I'll start answering your questions. So belladonna is one of our big ones. Now, what if it's a fever that has to do with more, you're worried about sepsis? I'm not sure, depending on your experience with homeopathy, I would say that if someone appears to be going into sepsis, you're going to give them the homeopathic medicine that I'm going to talk to you about right now, but you're on your way to the hospital. Okay, friends? There are times when we use hospitals. They can be life-saving, when conventional medicine can indeed be life-saving, but it doesn't mean we don't use the medicine on the way there. And then maybe once the person is in the hospital. Yes. So that medicine for something that might seem like sepsis or Excuse me, I don't know what's wrong with my throat. Excuse me. Sepsis or something like that, where it feels as though it's bigger than just a normal childhood fever, then we're going to be thinking about a remedy called pyrogenium. You bet. Look at you. Phoenicia said it. Elizabeth said it. Pat said it. You're right. Tina says it. Pyrogenium. This is the 4th edition that I'm using. You're not finding it in the 4th edition? Do I have the 3rd edition? No, this is the 4th edition. I'm on page 2226. So pyrogenium is bold and underlined in this particular rubric that I'm describing here. And so there are other medicines as well. We can also consider ferrum phos, one of the cell salts. Ferrum phos is a great remedy for fevers in general. And so if, depending on what kind of fever it is, meaning how it's presenting, or what it's associated with, then indeed we're going to choose a homeopathic medicine specific to that. But if you're a mom of kids and they get ear infections and sore throats and they get fevers, you don't need to own every medicine known to mankind that's used for fever. You're going to use the top, you're going to own the top medicines. Belladonna, ferrum phos. Yes, even pyrogenium is certainly a good possibility there too. What's another one we've got here? Aconitum, I just said. Yes, even Arnica montana. And these medicines will serve you extremely well. So let me just answer a couple of questions here. Is there a medicine that can stimulate a sluggish fever to get on with it so it does its work instead of just making you feel awful? I've never thought of it quite like that. Instead, I use the medicine specific because the person has the fever. And often what it does is it stimulates the body's natural ability to correct itself. It may bring it up to a higher temperature, may make it more vibrant. It may mount a good high fever and get it over with, or it might just end it. So it's hard to say that the goal of the medicine is to do what you're describing. When I do get a fever, I'm happy because it means my immune system is doing its job, says Alice. And I will soon recover. The worst for me is illness with only a slight fever because those drag on for weeks. Yes, it's true. Yeah, they can drag on. So if we use a remedy for a lower fever, such as ferrum phos, we could try a belladonna, even though it's usually for a little higher. It's worth a try. But ferrum phos, I find either in a 6 or a 30, is really great for a fever that's kind of wimpy. My child at 18 months suddenly struck a fever, 104, and went into convulsions. She ended up in the hospital with Rosalia infantum. Okay, so let me just say that my guess is that by the time you got to the hospital, the seizures were over. And here's the key word, suddenly. A fever is not about the convulsions or seizures are not related to the temperature of the fever. It's related to the suddenness and the rapidity of the fever, of the body going from this temperature to this temperature in very short order. Okay, my friends, listening to that story, suddenly got a nice fever of 104. Now, I say nice because my guess is by the time you got there, it was all over with. But what we want to look for is a remedy that would be used should that ever occur again. Let's see what you folks come up with. Because I just described it a moment ago. Let's just see here what everyone's saying. Aconitum, says Maya. Yep, aconitum. When we see, thank you, Paula. You're right, aconitum. Aconitum, says Tracy. Yes, Donna says aconitum. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Now, it doesn't mean we can't use belladonna, but aconitum was when it goes from 0 to 100 in very short order, or it can also be belladonna. Aconitum is my first thought. Belladonna is my second. And usually, as I said, it resolves. The seizures are horrible to observe, horrible for a mother to see. Our dog had seizures, and it was just an awful thing to see. I never saw any of my children have anything like that. Well, one of my children had a head injury, and it was a short seizure, and it really is an awful thing to behold. But you have to keep your wits about you, and on the way to the hospital, you would definitely use one of these homeopathic medicines. Yeah, Tina says, Nina, also sudden fright, fever. Yes, aconitum, absolutely. Yes. All righty. Let's see what else we've got here. Let's see if we've got some more questions coming in. So now, we don't see fevers here very often in adults. We don't have malaria. We don't have those kinds of fevers. Yeah, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, those kinds of illnesses. We certainly do exist in the U.S. But there are tropical diseases and tropical fevers that are much more common in India and Africa, etc. Let's just see if I can answer any other questions here. I often think of the homeopathic medicine as helping the body to do whatever needs to be done. Thank you, Elizabeth. To return to health. For instance, arsenicum alba made me throw up when I had eaten bad food, which needed to come up. I felt better then. Yeah, it may make things a little worse for a short period of time. By worse, meaning finishing off the condition. Yeah, absolutely. My 4-year-old granddaughter had a febrile seizure recently. Yes. And I urge you to read up on this from non-conventional sources, because the conventional sources will tell you to use acetaminophen, most likely. And so, yeah, as I said, these febrile seizures are really scary to observe, but they are not in and of themselves dangerous. They're not. I mean, are there circumstances in which they can be? Well, anything can be. But let me also make it clear to you, friends, that what it is simply it's the rapidity, because it moved too fast. And so once you treat with a homeopathic medicine for conditions such as this, the next time it's unlikely to happen. Or if it does happen again, you use the medicine again, and now it has a better chance of it not getting to that point again. Everyone's answering yes. Sudden fright fever. There you go. My daughter had a febrile seizure at 7 months. I thought she had died. Yeah, I know. That's what it feels like. Oh, I know, Pam. It's horrible. It's very scary to observe something like that. For seizure, would you give cuprum? Asks someone. For seizures that are more of a chronic condition, such as an epilepsy, I would think of cuprum. That cuprum, it would be my second or tertiary remedy, but I would start with aconitum or belladonna, or both, one and then the other. Cuprum 6 for seizures, I do believe, says Tina. Okay, so Dr. Mendelssohn's book set in the chapter on fevers. Thank you, Deborah from Wichita. For those of you who are reporting that your child or your grandchild had febrile seizures, do not hesitate to purchase the book, How to Raise a Healthy Child in Spite of Your Doctor, by Dr. Robert Mendelssohn. It's an old book. It was printed in the 80s. I talk about it frequently. In fact, I happen to have it right here. It's such an important book. This book is so important. If you're going to raise your child and own knowledge of how to do this, this is an important book. And it's not just that you just pick and choose, go here and there. No. Read it from cover to cover, my friends. Read it, and then when you're finished, do it again. This is your text. This is what we need to study to know how to do this. He was a pediatrician, and you'll also find him on YouTube from years ago. Let's see. I had a low-grade fever for 2 weeks with COVID. I let it run, but I did get dehydrated. My fault. Lesson learned, says Jody. Yeah. Sometimes children are so uncomfortable with the fever they won't drink, and you risk dehydration. Olive oil on the bottom, on the palms of the hands. Olive oil on the bottoms of the feet. It keeps the perspiration from exiting. Make popsicles. Get some oranges, juice them, add a little lemon to it too. Make popsicles and give them popsicles, or make ice cubes out of them and give them that to suck on. yes, they can dehydrate. But if you use homeopathy and if you move on it quickly, that fever generally goes away in such short order that we don't have to worry about dehydration. Close to 3 to 4 years ago, our family had a terrible fever with body aches and even some children throwing up. We used your Roostox recommendation, which worked for the children and this adult here. Thank you very much, Franisha. And then you gave the link. Thank you very much. Support with bone broths. Thank you very much. Also, Cat Gal. That is, yeah, it doesn't have to be something cold like a popsicle. It doesn't have to be ice chips. It can be bone stock. You can also make gelatin and give them little squares of Jell-O, because gelatin is really just water with gelatin added to it. And when they chew on it, it turns back to liquid again. Make popsicles from, yep, thank you. From what? From well, you can make popsicles from anything, but I wouldn't make popsicles from canned or jarred juice. I would make it from fresh juice. I would juice my own. Oranges and some lemons. That's right. Let's see. Kelly, my first thought as to the reason for that is money. I don't know what Kelly's question was or what her Kelly, sometimes children are so uncomfortable with the fever they won't drink. Yep. Okay. There we go. I had a low-grade fever. Read that already. Let's see what else we've got over here. It's hello, you all from Oklahoma. Let's see. It's jumping around. Excuse me. Okay. Aconitum. Very good points, friends. Now, you can get fevers from you can get a fever from a head injury. You can get a fever from many other conditions, and I won't go into that tonight because that is the study of homeopathy. That's when we're getting into studying the repertory, taking my courses, considering joining my academy, and that's where we get into more in-depth understanding of how to use homeopathy. What I like to do here is to give you the top couple, 2, 3, 4 medicines that will be useful to you and to make sure that you own them. Coconut water popsicle, yes. Yeah. Let's see. Seconding Kelly's question of if fever is good, why treat it? Even homeopathically, you're right, Karen. You're absolutely right. The reason I say treat it is because as we see in some of these questions or concerns is that mothers have worries. They worry about it and they think, well, this is just too uncomfortable. It's going on too long. What is too long? Is a day too long? 2 days too long? 3 days? So that's where you have to be. If you can't let it go because you don't have the confidence in it yet, then you can certainly use homeopathy. Or if you feel as though there's something else going on that you really feel needs to be treated and it's corresponds with the fever, then why not? What potency aconitum? I would use a 30 or a 200. I use, Shannon asked, do you want to mention the potencies? I would use belladonna in a 30. Could the homeopathic remedy for fever help the body complete the cure? Yes, absolutely. That's the idea. Because fever is not the disease. Fever is the symptom. And we don't treat symptoms. We use symptoms. If you're using pyrogenium, how often would you dose? Well, you would do it the same way, Lori, as you would for any other condition, depending on what's presenting. So if you give a dose of pyrogenium, and I always use pyrogenium in a 200, it's possible to use it in a 30, I suppose, but I've always used it in a 200. Then I would use it as needed. What's as needed? Well, you would use it maybe every hour if it were really, or maybe every 15 minutes if it were very serious, then maybe every hour, then maybe every 3 hours, etc., etc. What about a fever? No, fever blisters are a whole different world, and I've written about it. Only I don't know that I've always called them fever blisters. It might just be called a herpetic eruption. My little baby was struggling where aconitum and bryonia wasn't helping that much anymore, says Phoenicia. I used the fevers of unknown origin protocol where baptisia was huge and glad I had it. The whole protocol is in the antibiotic alternative course and such a gift. Thank you, Phoenicia. You're absolutely right. There are other medicines, and one of them is baptisia. Yes. All right, my friends, I am going to move on to my mighties. And then for those of you who are in the gateway, Gateway 2 that I'm meeting with tonight. I'll see you in about 15 minutes, but right now I'm going to go to my Mighties and I'll answer more questions. And let's see if, okay.